Hey, what's right? Have you ever been asked that question? Probably not. Isn't that crazy? How about what's wrong? I know you've been asked that like probably a million times. You ever think, why is that? Isn't what's right the far more beautiful question? Well, we live in a world primed to spot problems. Our brains are actually wired with a negativity bias. We instinctively focus on what's wrong more than what's right. In fact, negative stimuli produce more neural activity in the brain than equally intense positive ones. And this is why people can detect an angry face faster than a happy one. And this bias had survival value for our ancestors. It helped them avoid danger and kept us alive. But today, it can backfire. It can really leave us dwelling on the bad and overlooking the good. This tendency often shows up as rumination. So repetitively turning a negative thought over and over and over in your mind. Psychologists define rumination as the tendency to engage in sustained repetitive thinking about negative topics. It's like your brain getting stuck on a depressing chorus that just keeps looping. You replay that embarrassing conversation, or you worry endlessly about some mistake you made. You're gonna hope to solve it with this mental repetition, but instead of finding that solution, you're just gonna sink deeper. One Harvard doctor describes rumination as an endless repetition of a negative thought or theme that keeps spiraling downwards. And it's not just mood that suffers. An April 2020 study highlighted how rumination makes us more vulnerable to anxiety, to depression, to insomnia, and even impulsive behavior. It also revs up the body's stress responses, like inflammation, and it can interfere with sleep because our mind won't stop churning over everything that's wrong in our life. It's like mental quicksand. But here's the hopeful part. That downward spiral can be broken. Shifting our thought patterns not only can lift our mood, it actually changes our brains. Studies using brain scans show really powerful evidence of this. For example, in one experiment, participants who took a 90-minute walk in nature as opposed to a city walk had much lower self-reported negative rumination. They actually decreased the neural activity in a region of the brain linked to sadness and self-focus. The subgenial prefrontal cortex. By deliberately focusing on positive thoughts, this is going to light up different parts of the brain. When people experience gratitude, for instance, we see increased activity in regions like the anterior cingulate cortex and the medial prefrontal cortex. These are areas involved in emotional regulation, empathy, and reward. One study even found that a simple gratitude writing practice led to lasting changes in the brain for the positive. 3 months after people wrote letters of gratitude, their brains still showed greater sensitivity to feelings of thankfulness in the MPFC, the medial prefrontal cortex. So what exactly is happening? Well, by practicing gratitude, it's strengthening the neural pathways for positive emotion. As one neuroscientist put it, each time you have a repeated experience or thought, negative or positive, you deepen those neural circuits. Unfortunately, our brains remain plastic, changeable. That's the science of neuroplasticity. When you consistently create new positive experiences or patterns of thought, you begin to carve out these new pathways in the brain. So then what happens if we flip rumination on its head? What if instead of obsessing on what's wrong, we train ourselves to dwell on what's right? This is where the magic of appreciation and gratitude comes in. It's far from being just a nice idea that your grandma talks about. Positive focus has powerful effects backed by science. Science has discovered that cultivating gratitude can set in motion this upward spiral of well-being, essentially the exact opposite of the downward spiral of negativity. Higher levels of gratitude are strongly linked to greater happiness and life satisfaction. In other words, appreciation breeds more appreciation, and life just keeps looking brighter. This positive feedback loop might be one reason that grateful people tend to also be more resilient in the face of stress. In fact, gratitude has been associated with better mental health, greater resilience to trauma, and stronger social bonds, all ingredients of a fulfilling life. So instead of waking up and saying, what's wrong with my back? What's wrong with my wife? What's wrong with my kids? What's wrong with my boss? Galen, I know you're recording me right now. You probably never asked that question, right? Okay, good. Well, instead of ruminating on what's wrong, focus on what's right. If we made a list, if we compared these side by side, this list, what's right, would be 10 times longer. Our minds are powerful, and what we choose to focus on can shape our reality. Some psychologists say that rumination is the thief of joy, an endless interrogation of what's wrong with me, what's wrong with my life. But what if we ruminate on what's right? That's going to be the engine to a better life.